Welcome, everyone. This is Eric L. Dunavant, the Mindset Disruption Strategist. We are here again for another episode of Redefining Success. And I've never been more curious about sitting down with a guest than I am today. I mean, this is Phil Pelucha. He is the CEO and founder of Billionaires in Boxers. And I have not figured out whether or not to be intrigued or a little bit frightened by that title. So he is also... He's top 5% in podcasts, but this is the other thing I want to talk a little bit about. Number one in the world as a consultant to consultants. And so you don't get to this place without a journey of redefining success. And so, Phil, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, it's going to be lots of fun, and you should be afraid. No, it's the title was actually originally a joke. So we'd been picked up by a radio show, which was going really well. And then we got our first ever TV series and we needed a name for the TV series. And everything I suggested, they hated, to the point where I was almost banned from naming my own TV show. So I did what I usually do in that situation. And I just started joking around. And I was like, how about Billionaires in Boxers? Because I grow global empires from home and rarely put on pants. And they were like, we love that. Let's go with it. And I was like, it was a joke, right? It was just, I was joking. Fast forward after the first TV series, it went so well that we just completely rebranded all of our work, the broadcast network and the consulting firm, and everything just fell under Billionaires in Boxers.
That's fantastic. That is so good. Hey, Phil, before we get started, my first question typically is always the same. So it's a Saturday afternoon. I've got the barbecue grill fired up. I've invited all my friends over. My listeners are my friends. Do real quick, other than the stuff we've already talked about, introduce yourself to my friends, if you would.
Oh, great. Yeah. Most entrepreneurs, most business owners are waiting to be discovered. I'm the guy that shows you how to invite yourself.
I love that. That's fantastic. You married, kids, any family?
I am, yeah. So wife of 10 years. In fact, we're 10 years just Wednesday, just gone. It's incredible, like how she's not murdered me is a miracle. I mean, she's been there through all the highs and lows, and she's very how do I word this? She's very traditional, right? She's very go to university, get the job. Like, why are you leaving a really well-paid position to go and play entrepreneur? She's happy about it now. I'm not so she was so happy about it at the beginning. And we also have two children together, 9 and 5 years old. So
those are great ages. Those are great ages.
It's a lot of fun.
Phil, if we look at what you've got going on today, what are you most passionate about today?
What am I most passionate about today? So I'm all about championing the underdog. That's so I've done a lot of reflection on like my life's mission. And I truly believe that my purpose here is to create endless opportunities to champion the underdog. I've worked with some very, very big people, and I never get the same level of satisfaction and kick as I do with working with somebody smaller and helping them to it's the underdog story, right? Let's beat the big guy. David beats Goliath. I'm showing you how to throw the rock. So that's a lot of fun. So we have a TV series, which I was talking to you about in the green room, which is just about to come out, where I'm investing 25 million rand, so about $3 million there or thereabouts of my own money into 4 different businesses across Southern Africa. There are some phenomenal entrepreneurs in that region, and there's no middle class, right? It's all haves and have-nots. Yeah. So a lot of the people who have these incredible ideas that would have the ability to change the world and have a massive impact are never actualized because they don't know the people and they don't have the resources. I have both of those. So we're putting together a television competition where people will apply and go through a series of challenges, and then the winners will receive investment from me, our mentorship, and access to our wider Billionaires in Boxers network as well.
There's so much in that. I want to be careful where we go next. I'm probably going to come back to that. I want to know more about your story. How do you get to be Phil Pelucha, CEO, founder of Billionaires and Boxers? How do you get to be top 5%? I mean, I've always told people that, if you can become a success in 10 years, that's an overnight success. So
yeah, very true.
I'd love to know kind of a little bit more about your journey. And not only that, maybe kind of tell the audience maybe kind of about some of the biggest obstacles you faced while you were walking that out.
Oh, I mean, every step is an obstacle. I mean, I often say to my clients, the reason I'm able to do so well today is because I've tried every wrong door. There was no luck involved in this. In fact, I would say there was a lot of unluck. So I was originally a professional athlete. So football for me, soccer for you.
Yep.
And then I got medically retired pretty early on. So late teens, early 20s, I kept fracturing my shin bone, and that was the end of that. They didn't want Bionic Man in the professional league. So that was that. And that was that was probably the first major, I mean, outside deaths of the family and things like that. Professionally, that was like the first major block for me, because I thought I had my career mapped out for the next 50 years. I was going to
Mm.
play till my mid 30s, then I was going to coach, then I was going to become a television pundit. And now here I was, for the first time since the age of 6, I was no longer Phil the footballer. And I was like,
Mm.
well, what am I now? So I went and retrained, and I became a surveyor, and I had some incredible success in the world of real estate, working with some massive brands that everybody will know, some huge names. And that was fun. I got to board level with them very quickly, mainly because I took that winning mentality with me. I often say in sports, actually, the funny thing is, people think that athletes love winning. We don't. We just really hate losing. And there is a difference. So it's not that we are like hooked on that feeling of winning. It's just that we're so terrified of the feeling of losing.
Mm.
Which is it's good, because once you've tasted it and you've felt it, it's the motivation to never go there again.
Right.
So I was doing really well, and then I kind of found myself in a weird position, because my wife just got pregnant. This is like 2012. So my wife had fell pregnant, and my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And at the time, I was living in Cape Town, South Africa, so about 8,000 miles away from home. And it was like, okay, we need to go home. And every job that I kept being offered was a regional job, like Middle East and North Africa, Europe.
Mm.
And I was like, there's no point trying to be closer to home so I can help, and then being on the road 6 days a week. That doesn't make any sense. So I set up my own business, and it went horrifically, like really, really bad. So if I was to sum it up quickly, I had no idea what I was doing, right? I'd always worked for like really big corporates, where my ideal of business development was checking my emails and choosing a project.
Right.
I had no idea you had to win clients. I had no idea that sometimes people say yes to you and then don't pay.
Mm.
I had no idea that clients didn't pay on time. Like, all of this was complete news to me. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I just send them the invoice out to accounts, and then it lands in my account, right? And they're like, good luck with that. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to do. But what had happened was, whilst I'd been in the corporate world, I'd previously grown and sold 2 sports podcasting networks. And that was my attachment still to sport. And what I'd realized about it was a phenomenal networking tool. I mean, podcasting allowed me to VIP network with anybody I wanted to. So I suddenly had this sort of epiphany, literally in the middle of the night, where I thought, I wonder if I can use that in business.
Mm.
So my very primitive strategy, but it worked, was I made a list of the top 100 companies that I wanted to work with. I invited each of their CEOs onto a podcast to talk about themselves and their business. Fast forward 3 months, I've now got 21 people working for me full time globally, because I've bitten off way more than I could chew.
Yeah.
Ran 2 businesses like that very successfully, and then exited both of them, sold both of them, which was great. Was too young to retire, didn't have enough money to last me for the next 50 years. I was doing pretty well, but not with my spending habits. It wasn't going to last 50 years. And I didn't know what to do. So I started doing some consulting gigs here and there. And then a lot of people started to come to me and say, like, how did you get that TV show? How did you get that keynote speaking gig? How did you win that client? And I got so sick of telling them that I did it through networking by utilizing podcasting and media, that I just started a business teaching people how to do that.
Right.
Fast forward almost 7 years. We're now in our 5th year of being ranked #1 in the world in this space. There's 16 of us full time globally doing this. And welcome to Billionaires in Boxers.
You talked about your wife a little bit in this. I would be curious to know, like, especially when it's struggling, you're not a footballer anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're stepped out of the corporate to kind of go do your own thing.
Yeah.
What's she saying through all of this?
Go and get a real job. Yeah. So I think, when are you gonna give this up? When are you gonna go back? Like, okay, you've had some fun now. Go do what's stable again. All of that, right? Because she was scared. She was
Yeah.
pregnant, like, this talk about jumping into the fire with 2 feet, right? Like, I've got a dying mother who I'm spending time in hospital with. I've got my family back home to take care of. I've got staff to take care of, and now I'm trying to just leave and go and do my own thing. And it was the in many ways it was the worst timing, but in other ways it was the best timing because failure wasn't an option.
Mm,
So I had to find a way to make this happen. I think if I'd have had that safety net of let's go back, um, I don't think it would have been as successful, but there was something in my mind that said I'm never going to work for somebody else ever again.
mm,
And once I've made that decision, it was done. I'm quite stubborn like that. But even I was kind of thinking I'm going to have to admit defeat here and go back. But I remember one Christmas in particular. In fact, it was a very valuable lesson I learned quite early on. I was working on this huge project with this one client, and it was really good money as well. Like it was like 80 grand a quarter. I was really pleased at the
yeah.
time. I was like, this is great. Um, and then they didn't pay in the summer because they were having cash flow issues. So it kept kind of getting pushed on and pushed on and pushed on. And they went bust 2 weeks before Christmas. And basically I got told that was it. There was no money. And at this point they owed me about 90 grand, maybe. So that's
Yeah.
in pounds. So it's probably about 110, $120,000.
Yep.
And I had to get a credit card out to pay for Christmas. And my wife and I didn't exchange gifts that year because we just wanted to make sure that we had enough for the kids. And it was I mean, Christmas is always quiet anyway, right, for business because
Yep.
everyone's off during that period. It was the worst period in the world for me because every minute felt like an hour, and I just sat brooding in my failure,
Mm,
knowing that I'd caused this situation, but also knowing that I couldn't wait for the offices to open in January again so I could fix it. Because at that moment, there was no way of fixing it. Everybody was closed, everybody was on vacation, and I often think back to that Christmas. My wife doesn't bring it up, but I occasionally think about it, and it's kind of like my barometer of how far we've come. But it's also my motivation for we got to keep going because I want to be as far away from that place
yep.
as humanly possible.
Were you able to find any peace during that season? Because I mean, here's the real issue, right? It's Christmas time, as you said. Until you hit maybe January 2nd or 3rd, there's nothing you can do about it. How
Yeah,
did you mentally get through that season in one sense, knowing that that period was completely out of your control?
badly. I didn't deal with it well at all. I was very
Mm,
angry with myself. I
mm,
basically spent 3 weeks torturing myself.
mm,
And nobody has ever spoken to me as negatively as my head speaks to me.
mm.
And at that particular moment, like I was calling myself every name under the sun. I'd never been so ashamed of the situation. I was embarrassed. I was angry. I was frustrated. Um, but you know what? A lot of that at the time was very painful, but that pain became fuel.
Mhm.
Um, I I wanted to make sure that we were never in that situation ever again. And in fact, I almost had to be careful with my mindset not going too far the other way because at one point I recognized, probably about 2 years ago, that I was getting to the point where enough was never enough.
Ah.
Like there's $5 million in the bank, and I'm like, it's not enough. Where's the 10? Like, how do we get to 10? Where's the 11? Like, what if, hypothetically we have 2 years and no one pays us any money? And it's like, well, why is that going to happen? And
Right.
so, but this is what my head does, is it's constantly challenging me and pushing me to go and do the next thing. And a lot of it is, I don't know whether this is the nicest thing to admit, but I think a lot of this is, I remember what rock bottom feels like.
Mhm.
I mean, my earlier life until I was signed professionally in sports wasn't great. I mean, like I lost a parent very young. I was kicked out of school at 14, and then I was made homeless as a result. I was in and out of the social care system.
Mm.
Um, like my life was not supposed to be where it is today. Statistically, like I am the anomaly.
Right.
But every time something went wrong, I would instantly go back to, see, I am a failure. I am destined for nothing.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
so even when business is going very well, like my team is celebrating and I'm not celebrating, I'm going, okay, what's next? Like
Mm.
what's the next milestone? What's the next achievement? You mentioned earlier being ranked number one in the world. The phrase that I always use is, we were number one in the world yesterday. Today we're still fighting for it. And that's the attitude I take into every day, which is, yesterday we did it. What about today?
Yeah. Yeah. What about your wife today? I mean, does she at least believe that this is gonna work?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, obviously she gets to see the success now, so she's very happy. She doesn't work, she doesn't need to work, which is great. Um, my children are both homeschooled, so she's doing a great job raising them. So that's allowed us the freedom. We live and work all over the world, which is great. We can be wherever we want to be, whenever we want to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's very different now, but she's definitely a seeing is believing type of person. Whereas I was the vision, like I knew where we were going before we'd even started on the road.
Yeah.
Whereas my wife is, yeah, I don't sell me the story, show me the bank,
That's
right?
it.
Show
That's it.
show me the end result, show me the products. I think that's so the more that she's seen that, the more confident that she's become. And what's great about that is she also knows my mindset. So while she's my cheerleader, she's my cheerleader in as much as she knows what I need to hear. So
Mhm.
she knows when to tell me to rest, and she knows when to say, you've done a good job, acknowledge that. She's a great man manager as well, which I'm not particularly. So she's very good at saying to me, go back and acknowledge the team now. We've just done something amazing with that. Like, don't just focus on what's next, that you're gonna burn them out.
Yeah.
And she's great at that, because my head is always 5-10 steps further forward. So she's great at helping me to live in the now and appreciate today.
Phil, this is an interesting timing we're recording this. I would love for you to speak to because by the time this episode comes out, we're going to probably be pretty close to Christmas, if not in the Christmas season, right?
Yeah.
So, what would you say to the listener who's listening during Christmas season, who's in the exact same spot you were in at that point? What would you say to them
Oh,
today?
wow. Good question. What would I say to somebody who's in that position today? I'd probably say two things, because hindsight's always 2020, right?
Mm.
Number one is split your time. Split your time through preparation. Beating yourself up is not fixing anything. So, take action. Take action. And that action can be, if everyone else is off on vacation, be getting your lead generation list ready, be getting your LinkedIn list ready, be getting the events that you want to speak at and doing your research to find out who the event organizers are. So the second everyone's back in the office, you can start having conversations again and you can start getting on with this. The
Mm.
other thing I would say is you're probably in a slightly better position than I was, because I think things have changed a lot since COVID. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who actually aren't going to be taking anywhere near as much time off this holiday season, because they're still trying to catch up from the
Yeah.
damage that COVID did. So
Sure.
I think that window of 4 weeks when people are off on vacation, unless you're working really high up in the corporate world, I don't think you're going to experience as many people off as you think. I think you're still going to be able to line up calls and have conversations and be finding people. So take action, get prepared, right? What is it they say? Failure to prepare is preparing to fail,
Dale. Yeah.
right? So that's point number one. Point number two is to appreciate the most important ingredient for success, that I think you have to have failed before you recognize what the most important ingredient for success is. And the most important ingredient for success is rest.
Mm.
The
Mm.
more you have, the more you have, the more you can help. I absolutely hate this hustle BS mentality that's being sold to people. It's not true. I work
Mm.
2 to 3 days a week now, and I've earned more money now than at any other point in my entire life. We've never been so successful, and I'm off more than I'm in. And I think this whole, just work and work and work, you're going to cause burnout.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't go to the gym 12 hours a day because you're going to cause an injury. So why would you think that mentally or physically or even emotionally or
That's so
spiritually
good.
you can do that?
Yeah.
I'd much rather you worked 4 hours a day at 100% than 15 hours a day at 50%.
Mm. Mm. That's a nugget right there. Ah, that
On
is
that
so
note,
good.
that's why none of my team have working hours. They all have flexi hours. Every single person in my business is judged on results, not on the amount of time that they're working. In fact,
Mm.
I go so far as to go the other way. If they're working too many hours to get the results, then they're not doing it efficiently or effectively, and we need to fix that.
Mm.
This is not a 9 to 5 world anymore.
Yeah.
You can achieve a tremendous amount in 3 to 4 hours in a day and do so at 100% so that people love who you are and what you can achieve.
Yes. Yes. I want to shift over. I want to talk about this new television series because you are
Yeah.
on to one of my passions,
Okay.
which is the fact that, when we talk about success, that sometimes the key to success in certain communities is hope.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
is that there are communities who have been out without hope and without dreams. And when you can go into those, especially those who are experiencing, maybe grew up in more poverty or
Sure.
things like that. And it sounds like that's what you're wanting to do by investing in these businesses. So talk a little bit more about that, because that really starts to get me excited.
I think I will touch on that in a second, but just to kind of comment on what you said, I find that not just in the emerging markets. Like I find people from Michigan who say I can't do that because I'm black, or
Yep.
so it's not necessarily only the emerging markets who have this. I think it's the misconceptions. Don't get me on this rant, but I think it's the misconceptions that the educational system and the media portray on people.
Yes.
Well, you can't do this because you didn't go to this Ivy League school, and you can't do this because it's nonsense. It's complete nonsense.
Hmm.
I saw a quote the other day from Elon Musk saying about, I think education is important. I didn't go to Harvard, but everyone that works for me did. And I really like that quote because it's
I do
very, very
too.
powerful.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, uh, a lot of this comes down to misconceptions and mindset. It's what people have been conditioned to think is possible for them.
Yep.
Which is why I hate the education system. Like I've written a book that comes out next year, called Underdog Champion, Unknown to Unrivaled.
Mm.
And I didn't actually realize until after I'd written the book that two whole chapters are me just ripping on the education system, um, saying that it's designed to create workers, not entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And if they really cared about entrepreneurs, they wouldn't give you a grade card at the beginning of the year and tell you to get straight A's. They'd give you a grade card, tell you to get two A's, and go and partner with people in your school year who are equally as good at their part, so you can do that because that's how a business
That's
works.
exactly right.
Um,
They
so
actually might tell you to fail a class or two so you can learn something.
Correct. I mean, you think about it. If I got an A star in one thing and flunked every other class, I'd be in front of the principal. I'd be in trouble, right?
Right.
That in business just made me a billionaire.
That's right.
um, so the mindset is just completely wrong with this. Now I got to experience South Africa a lot. It's where my wife's from. We originally met on Twitter, of all places, talking about football, which is hilarious. And within a few months of talking, I decided I want to be with this woman. So I gave up everything and I moved over to South Africa to go be with her. Never been there before. And I found myself in a country that I'd never experienced before, or
Mm.
or anything like it. I found myself in a country that, and anybody who's either lived in or been to South Africa, I'm sure will recognize this. For a start, it's a country of the haves and the have-nots.
Mm.
You have the pools, the houses with the pools and the Bentleys that look like they belong in Bel Air, and a mile down the road is a shanty town with tin roofs, no running water. Um, and there's a lot of crime, and people say, "Oh, well, why is there crime?" And it's like, why is there crime? Like, if I couldn't feed my kids, I'd go steal too. Like, I don't understand how this is even a discussion.
Right.
There, but for the grace of God goes I, kind of thing.
Amen. Yep.
But you meet a lot of people in that situation, and it is a lack of hope. It's, well, I can't do this because look at where I was born into. Look at my circumstances. My parents are broke, so I'll be broke. And that's really sad because many of these people have incredible ideas that, if they were let loose on the world, would be incredibly impactful. Now,
Hmm.
here's a funny thing to tell you. Maybe not. Maybe funny is the wrong word, but interesting at least. A lot of the people who I meet who do actually have a bit more drive in terms of they believe they can achieve a bit more, if they've still put a self-imposed limit on it. So
Yeah.
they'll say things like, I'd love to have my own business doing this. And then you follow that through and you say, okay, well, who would it be working with? Well, I'd love to do it across South Africa. It's like, why? South Africa has no money. Like,
Mm.
the rand is like horrific. It's been getting worse steadily since like 2008. Why not earn dollars and spend rand? Why can't you compete on a global scale? Why can't you go toe to toe with that New York ad agency? And instead of taking the attitude that often comes out of India, which is, how do we compete on them? Well, we'll offer the services for a third of the price.
Right.
It's like, no, like, why can't you earn the same amount of money that the New York ad agency does and produce better results? We live in a global world. Like, the people who from New York who are hiring firms in Chicago rarely meet them face to face. The people in California rarely are speaking to the people they're working with in Vancouver. They're not seeing them. It's
Yeah.
on Zoom. So if it's on Zoom, why can't it be on Zoom with Cape Town? Why can't it be on Zoom with Johannesburg? Why can't it be on Zoom with Durban? There's no reason for this. but it's this self-imposed limitation of, even if I have a successful business, it will only be in this very small part of the world, because why would
Mm,
anybody else want me? And that is heartbreaking, because actually I look at the talent there and I think you could absolutely crush some of these established markets. And let me tell you the number one reason why. And I don't mean this in a literal sense. Hunger.
mm,
They are
mm.
hungrier than you. The West is lazy.
Yeah.
The many people in the West, it's like, how do I do this but like deliver less? Like, how do I earn the same? Like these agencies that are like, well, we'll do a bit of work and then we'll kind of see what happens. I hear this all the time about social media agencies, for example, clients saying that unless they're a big agency that can give them like $100,000 a month budget, they don't care about them. They'll take their $5,000 a month retainer, they'll do some ads for them, but they don't care about them. They're just this small company.
Yeah.
That client to a South African firm is their everything. They're rolling out the red carpet for you. They're doing everything they possibly can to put you at the top of your industry so that you stay with them. So, you know, what's that saying? Somebody else's trash is another man's treasure,
Pleasure. Yeah.
right? So in the US, many of these agencies and businesses are looking at their clients like trash because they're the low end. But somewhere else, you're someone's treasure, and they will treasure you, and they will do an incredible job to deliver for you. And it's about making those international introductions and partnerships
Mm.
happen. That excites me no end.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we're getting close to the end. I hate that. This has been so good. We could talk for a long time. Is there anything I didn't get to ask you questions about that you wanted to share? I want to give you a little bit of space for that.
No, brother. Honestly, you can ask me anything you like. If this is helping people, then I'm happy. So you ask me whatever you like.
No, that was okay. Well, good. I'm excited to hear what. Tell us what the new television show is when it comes out. Is there like in the States? How would people connect with it? How would they watch it? What would that look like?
Great question. So it's probably going to be about 12 months until you're going to be able to watch it, because we're recording over the whole of 2023. The recording
Okay.
starts in March. It's called Future Billionaires in Boxers. And it's going to be aired across 26 million homes across the emerging markets, predominantly Africa and Asia, although a little
Okay.
bit of Latin America. But the US audience will be able to watch it on our streaming channels shortly after that, which will be Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple, I think. I'll make sure you can find it. Don't worry. It will be on all good networks. um, I'm sure somebody will pick it up as well as a rerun, but it will initially air in those markets because that's predominantly where it's aimed. But then following from that, you'll be
Okay.
able to view the content.
What about if people want to follow you, be in touch with you, know the stuff that you've got going on, Phil? What's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn, I think, is probably the best bet. I'll let you in a little secret. LinkedIn's the only social media I actually have anything to do with personally. um, LinkedIn's a good place. Come and follow us. I can't guarantee I can connect because I keep going over the 30,000 allowance, and then LinkedIn keeps shouting at me. But you can give us a follow on there. You'll actually get to see drip bits of the content, because we're also going to be releasing bits of the content throughout the year. The new podcast series comes out end of the year, so probably by the time you're listening to this, the first episode of that'll be out as well, so you can start catching up on that, which will be brilliant. I also run a free networking event, which was originally monthly. Now it's more like bi-monthly, because it generates too many calls and leads to get done in a month. But it's called Profitable Networking Monthly, and it's a free event that allows people to come. It's a great event. We usually have about 1,500 people to 2,000 people sign up. We run for 4 hours, loads of breakout sessions. It's completely free to attend. There is no upsell. There's not a pitch fest. This is about helping people's businesses grow. Out of it, I've seen people win clients. I've seen people win partnerships. I've seen people get media interviews, podcast interviews. Everybody leaves with podcast interviews, usually at least 10. There's just some phenomenal stuff that happens there as well, and you really kind of get to learn from some great people who are in different places. And I call it industry and geographical cross-pollination, because we get to look at what ideas are working in other places in other industries and implement them into your own business, which is phenomenal.
That's on your the Profitable Networking Monthly is on your LinkedIn. What's the best way to find that?
Profitable Networking Monthly is on my LinkedIn. If you follow me, you will definitely see posts about it.
Okay.
It's also always advertised as a LinkedIn event. So if you actually go and search on the search bar at the top of LinkedIn for Profitable Networking Monthly, you will find us.
Perfect. I feel a little bad because most of my guests, I warned them this question's coming, but you've done so good with everything else. My last question is always the same. In 3 generations, what do you hope your great grandchildren remember about you?
that I was the start of the legacy.
Mm. Mm. Yes, that's beautiful. Phil, thank you. This has
Thank
been
you.
so rich. This has been so good. Thank you for making the time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope your audience have got a lot out of it too. Like, it's
If
an
they
interesting
haven't, that's
journey.
on them.
Yeah. Do you know what? Do you know what? Being an entrepreneur is a very interesting journey. I describe being an entrepreneur as someone who's unemployable. And the reason for that is we march to the beat of our own drum, and
Yes.
some days, you will get down and ask yourself why you're doing this. Some days, other people will ask you why you're doing this. But I want your audience to remember this one last thing: the people that asked you why you're doing it will be the first to ask you how you did it.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Phil, thank you for dropping such great nuggets of wisdom. Thank you again. Everyone, we will be with you again next time. God bless you. Have a fantastic day.